Incredible act of a poor maid, how stealing a Ferrari to save a child revealed hidden humanity. Maria's heart raced as she stood on a desolate Chicago street, her palms clammy and eyes wide. She knew she was just a maid, but the weight of her family pressed down like an anvil. Her younger brother, Luis, depended on her, and her ailing mother needed treatment. When she heard the rumors that Alex, a local boy she had grown fond of, was missing, her world narrowed to a desperate point. She couldn't just stand by. He meant too much. It was well past midnight, the city alive with flickering lights and secret stories, but in Maria's chest, fear gripped her like a vice. She had no money for a cab. Panic surged within. Then she saw it. A sleek, silver Ferrari, glimmering like a beacon of hope or perhaps a foolish chance. With a quick glance over her shoulder, she made a decision that would alter the course of her night. She jumped into the car, heart pounding, and turned the key. The engine roared to life. It felt like a wild stallion under her command as she sped through the chaotic streets. The thrill mixed violently with dread. The city blurred past her, a backdrop to the memories flooding her mind, the warmth of shared meals, neighborhood friendships forged in hardship, the tight-knit community that had always wrapped her in support. She pressed on, not just for Alex, but to prove to herself that she could fight back against the crushing tide of despair. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sirens wailed in the distance, sharp and piercing like a knife to her gut. She glanced in the rearview mirror, panic buzzing through her veins. The police were in pursuit. But her righteous mission overshadowed her fear of the law. She was just a maid on an impossible journey, filled with determination and love. As she turned onto a dimly lit avenue, the weight of her choices pressed down on her. Just then, she spotted him. An older man with grizzled hair, wearing a veteran-esque jacket, stepped into her path. He raised a hand, signaling her to stop. Her heart sank. Would this be the end of her reckless ride? But instead of turning her in, he leaned into the car. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, eyes soft with understanding. Maria felt the walls around her built of shame and fear begin to break. She poured her heart out, sharing her struggle, the urgency of saving Alex. In that moment, she saw the glimmer of humanity mirrored in his gaze, something that made the chaos around them seem to pause. As they neared the last known location of Alex, tension filled the air. Would she be judged for her desperation, or understood for the heart behind her actions? The sirens drew closer, but it didn't matter. She held tight to hope, gripping the steering wheel as they surged forward. What awaited them would change everything. Would she find Alex before it was too late? In the veteran's gaze, Maria found a flicker of reassurance, a connection that buoyed her spirit even as fear gnawed at her. This man, this stranger, seemed to understand the stakes. Her heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the chase but from the weight of her confession. His presence was unexpected, but in that moment, he became her ally. "Listen," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "A boy named Alex is missing. He needs my help." The veteran nodded, his expression shifting from curiosity to urgency. "Then let's make sure you find him," he replied, almost resolutely. "Just keep your eyes on the road and your foot on the gas." With renewed determination, she pushed the Ferrari harder, weaving through the maze of alleys and dimly lit streets that felt both unfamiliar and hauntingly familiar. Memories flooded back, the laughter of children playing in the neighborhood, the Saturday afternoon potlucks at the community center, the sprinkles of light flooding the tenements at dusk. Alex was a part of that life, and Maria was prepared to pull every string to save him. Where would they take him? She mused aloud, more to herself than to the man beside her. He seemed to pause, weighing his words carefully. Sometimes people don't see what's right in front of them. They'll think he's just another kid. But you know better, he replied, his voice gravelly yet imbued with warmth. A silent wave of hope coursed through her. He was right. She couldn't let Alex be another forgotten face in a city too consumed by its own chaos. Her grip tightened on the wheel, and her resolve hardened like steel. Suddenly, she made a sharp left, crossing into a part of the city where shadows congregated. It felt risky, but that was where desperation drove her. She barely had time to catch her breath when a flicker of movement caught her eye. There it was, a small, dimly lit alley on the right, where a group of young boys clustered. They were laughing, their voices echoing around like trapped echoes of joy amidst despair. In the midst of them stood a familiar figure. Her heart dropped. "Alex!" she screamed, her voice raw with urgency. He turned, his face lighting up with recognition, confusion mixing in his eyes. "Maria!" he shouted back, but before she could process the moment, the voices of the boys changed. "Hey, what's with your car?" one of them joked, inching towards the Ferrari. Panic surged back, but the veteran squeezed her shoulder gently. "Go to him," he urged, his expression fierce. "I'll handle this." She barely comprehended his words. All that mattered was Alex. She flung open the car door, rushing towards him. In that moment, time stretched, and the chaos of everything around them faded. "Are you okay?" she asked, reaching out to grasp his shoulders. He stammered, eyes wide with excitement and fear. A sudden crack of a police radio pierced the air, jolting her back to reality. Where before there had been hope, now stood the imminent threat of being caught. Would now be the moment that everything slipped away? Her heart raced anew, terror coiling in her chest as she risked looking over her shoulder. But what she didn't expect was the warrior and the veteran who stood ready to defend their fleeting moment of connection. With fierce determination, he stepped forward, raising his hands as if to shield her and Alex from whoever might come next. Would his bravery be enough? Would her reckless journey to save a boy cost them both dearly? In the face of their uncertain fate, Maria held tight to the small sliver of hope blossoming inside her. If they could just hold on to this moment, maybe, just maybe, they would find a way out together. With Alex's eyes pleading up at her, a rush of fierce determination surged. What would she do if their lives were suddenly placed even more in jeopardy? The stakes had never felt higher. A heavy silence wrapped around them as the shifting lights of a police car crept closer down the alley. Maria's heart pounded like a drum, echoing her nerves. The cheerful laughter of the boys faded into the background, replaced by a suffocating anxiety that threatened to swallow her whole. "Stay close," the veteran shouted as he moved to position himself between Maria and the approaching lights. His body tensed, muscles coiling in preparation for whatever confrontation might come. She could see the calm resolve on his face, and it filled her with admiration, but also fear. "Alex, we need to go, now," she urged, looking back to where her brother stood. He hesitated, eyes darting between her and the boys who had once brought him joy. Desperation clawed at her throat as she felt the seconds slip away. "Please, just trust me." He took a hesitant step forward, still processing the scene. Maria reached out, taking his hand firmly, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. It was a reminder of their bond, of the love that had fueled her reckless decision to take the Ferrari in the first place. In an instant, she could feel his fear shifting into determination as he squeezed back. "Let us go," she cried, pulling him towards the car. But as they turned, laughter erupted from the boys, fading into sharp cries. "What are you doing?" "It's just a cop," one of them called over, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Maria's throat constricted as she turned back, only to see the veteran glance toward the group, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "You need to take him away from here," he said, voice steady despite the tension rising around them. He glanced back, and their eyes locked, understanding passing between them. But then it shattered as the blue lights flashed, illuminating their faces in a cold glow. Maria felt a wave of fear surge through her. "What about you?" "I'll make sure they don't follow." "Just go." "No. I can't leave you." The thought of him facing the police alone made her heart race in panic. "I'm an old soldier, Maria. This is my fight now. You and Alex, you just run." His voice carried an authority that she didn't want to defy. With one last glance, a mix of desperation and gratitude swelling inside her, Maria turned to Alex. "We have to trust him. We can't risk it." They dashed back to the Ferrari, and as Maria threw herself into the driver's seat, she felt a mix of resolve and fear gripping her heart. She glanced in the rearview mirror, catching one last glimpse of the veteran. He stood his ground, arms raised, as the police vehicles rolled forward, and for the briefest moment, he met her gaze with a fierce glare that said everything: "You keep fighting. Go!" She shouted at Alex, her voice determined and fierce. He nodded, breathing heavily, as she slammed the pedal to the floor. The Ferrari shot forward, tires screeching against the pavement, cutting through the night like a comet. The thrill of speed pulsed through her, but it was tinged with dread. Where were they going? Would he be okay? Where to? Alex asked, breathless with fear. "Anywhere but here, we need to figure this out." As they sped down the road, Maria stole a glance at him. The raw fear etched on his face mirrored her own inner turmoil, but there was something else: resolve. "Maria, we have to find help," he said, his small voice steady. "I'm not giving up." She nodded, her heart swelling with pride. This was the boy she had fought for. But just as hope ignited, her stomach dropped. Ahead, a barricade blocked the street, tactical units swarming into position. There was no route to safety. Her pulse quickened as they drew closer, dread clawing at her throat. "Fork left or right?" Alex prompted. And in that moment, Maria realized she was faced with an impossible choice: would they risk it all to charge forward into the blockade, or turn into the unknown, potentially leading them further into danger? "Left!" she shouted, the decision catching in her chest, a swirl of fear and bravery mixing within. But as they sped toward the turn, she caught sight of a familiar figure moving in the crowd, panic blossoming in her chest. Could it be? Was it possible to reach out for unexpected allies? "Alex, look!" Could they find help amidst the chaos, or was the clock ticking down faster than they could escape? The answers lay just ahead, but at what cost? Maria's heart raced as she gripped the steering wheel. The world outside blurred into streaks of color, each second stretching both heavy and fleeting. "Who is it?" she asked, squinting to make sense of the crowd now converging at the blockade. "I can't tell. But they're moving this way." Alex strained to see, desperation creeping into his voice. The figure was weaving through the throngs of people, eyes scanning the chaotic scene like a lighthouse beam cutting through the fog. "Keep your head down," she urged, shifting her focus back to the road. The barricades loomed closer, and she felt the weight of the decision settling like a stone in her gut. There was urgency, but there was fear too. What if those allies turned out to be just more threats? As they neared the turn, Maria's breath caught in her throat. The figure broke through, and as if the universe aligned, she recognized him. "Jake!" she yelled, a mix of relief and disbelief flooding her voice. They had grown up together, his laughter a staple of her childhood and his loyalty a comforting presence. "Maria!" "Alex!" he shouted back, eyes wide with concern. He sprinted forward, his movements fluid and purposeful. "Get out of the car, we've got to move." A rush of hope surged through Maria. Maybe they could get out of this after all. "What's happening?" she cried, pressing the brakes and bringing the Ferrari to a screeching halt. Alex shot her a look, and she could see the flicker of fear turn into hope. There's a way through the alley behind the blockades, it's a shortcut. Jake glanced over his shoulder, the tension in his shoulders betraying the pressure all around them. But we need to go now. They'll catch us if we don't hurry. Alex started from the car, and Maria followed quickly, her heart thumping in sync with their rapid footsteps. This way. Jake urged, leading them away from the chaos. The three of them slipped into the shadows, the sounds of the outside world muffled to a distant hum. As they rounded a corner, the atmosphere shifted, becoming thick with uncertainty. What about the veteran? Maria dared to ask, her voice trembling. He stayed to protect us. Jake's expression turned somber. I know, I saw him face off with the police. He bought you some time. Maria's heart sank. He shouldn't have had to do that. We should have been there. Don't go there, Alex interjected, grabbing her arm. We did the right thing. You saved me, Maria. We can't just give that up. His voice trembled but was sturdy, each word remarkably anchoring her spiraling panic. Right, she whispered, feeling the warmth of his hands reminding her of their bond. They had made it this far. They couldn't allow fear to derail them now. As they reached a narrow passageway, Jake paused, his face tense. We'll have to cross a couple of streets to get to where my car is parked. But once we're out of sight we can figure out a plan. Maria nodded, taking a deep breath. Each step into the unknown felt like diving deeper into a pool with no clear bottom. But maybe, just maybe, Jake held the key. Suddenly, a commotion erupted behind them. The sound of shouting and feet pounding against the pavement crashed against them. Panic flared, and they exchanged quick glances. It was the sign they needed to move. Go. Now. Jake urged, and together they sprinted through the darkened alley, hearts pounding in tandem. But as they raced toward freedom, a chilling thought gripped Maria's heart. In their mad dash, they left the veteran behind, and he had given them everything. Were they truly ready to leave the past behind without it weighing down on them? Just as they turned the corner, a figure stepped out from the shadows ahead. Maria's stomach twisted. It was someone she hadn't expected, adding yet another layer to their already complicated escape route. Stop right there. You're not going anywhere. The voice rang out, brimming with authority. All hope shuddered as Maria felt the world close in around them once again. Could they really outrun their fate, or was this the moment everything would slip away? Maria's heart dropped as she took a step back, instinctively moving closer to Alex. The figure confronting them wore a uniform, the badge glinting under the dim light. She squinted, desperately trying to see the face hidden beneath the cap. It was Officer Wells, her childhood neighbor, someone who had once taught her how to ride a bike and who had always seemed to watch over the neighborhood like a guardian. Wells? She gasped, disbelief twisting in her gut. What was he doing here? Please, we're not a threat. Not a threat? He shot back, his tone sharp. You're out here in stolen property, running from a scene that's blown up into chaos. You think I'm just going to let you walk away? The panic began to bubble again in Maria's chest. We're trying to escape this mess. We need to get out of here. All right, Jake interjected, stepping forward. We aren't your enemies. There's a lot more going on here. If you just shut it. Wells interrupted, raising his voice, the authority in it cutting through the tension. Every moment you waste is another moment that puts you in danger. You need to come with me. Danger? From who? Alex asked, bewilderment tracing his features. The police are on high alert. We're all caught in something much larger than you realize, Wells insisted, his eyes scanning the darkness as if expecting a storm of officers to come down the alley at any second. Maria's mind raced. She glanced at Jake, uncertainty in his eyes mirrored her own. But what choice did they have? Look, we've lost too much already, Maria whispered, her voice tight with fear. We have to trust him. If we don't, we might not make it out of here. Time is of the essence. I want to ask again, Wells said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, urgency spilling from every word. Come with me now, or face the consequences of being out here. The noise from the blockade grew louder, desperate shouts echoing against brick walls. Maria looked at Jake, whose jaw tightened. He understood the stakes. They were cornered, trapped between loyalty to their past and the chance of survival. Okay, Jake finally said, stepping closer to Wells. Lead the way. At that moment, a noise echoed from behind them. A flash of light bounced off the walls of the alley, followed by the rapid footsteps of law enforcement. They had no time to think. Move! Wells shouted, taking off into the shadows with the urgent grace of someone who was used to navigating through tight spots. Maria and Alex grabbed each other's hands and sprinted after him, their minds racing as they followed. They paused behind a dumpster, heartbeats sinking as they pressed against the cold metal. Just a few blocks ahead, Wells breathed, glancing back nervously. I've got a secure spot. Just hold on to each other. Maria felt Alex's grip tighten, drawing strength from the connection. They were in this together, but the weight of their choices loomed over them. Could trust still survive in a moment where bonds were being tested? Wells took another glance back, fear leaning into his focused demeanor. When we get out of sight, I'll explain everything, but you need to promise to stay quiet. Do you understand? Yes. Maria whispered urgently, her heart racing. They needed to survive. They needed answers. With a stealthy glance, Wells began to lead them down a darkened alley, the shadows swallowing them whole. But as they turned the corner, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that uncertainty would be their only anchor. The chaos behind them was nothing compared to what lay ahead. What hidden truths had Wells been guarding? And could secrets from their past direct them toward a future they never imagined? Breathless, Maria followed Wells as they dashed through the alley, darkness wrapping around them like a thick blanket. Each footstep echoed in her ears, merging with the pounding of her heart. She could feel the weight of their choices pushing against her chest. What had they gotten themselves into? Wells led them through a maze of darkened streets, his posture tense, muscles coiled like springs. The adrenaline coursed through Maria's veins, keeping her alert but also alerting her to the uncertainty of their situation. Stay close, Wells whispered over his shoulder. Maria exchanged a glance with Alex, who looked pale but resilient. His hand squeezed hers, and in that moment, she felt a flicker of hope. Together, they would tackle whatever came next. After several tense minutes of dodging visible streets, they reached a dilapidated building, an abandoned storage unit, its windows shattered and walls tagged with graffiti. Wells pushed the door open with a creak, ushering them inside. The stale air hit them, heavy with neglect and decay. Quick, Wells urged, motioning for them to enter. Maria hesitated, unease curling in her stomach at the idea of stepping into the unknown. What is going on, Wells? We need to know, Jake pressed, his voice steady even as uncertainty flickered across his face. I'll explain everything in a minute, Wells replied, shutting the door behind them. Just, keep your voices down. We can't afford to be found. Maria took a moment, the room dim but surprisingly spacious. Shadows loomed in every corner. She was aware of every detail: the chill of the concrete floor, the leftover scent of rust and old wood, the distant sound of sirens that reminded her of how far they had to go to truly feel safe. Maria, Wells said, suddenly serious, breaking through her fog of thoughts. You remember the old neighborhood? How things used to be? His eyes were searching, pleading for understanding. She nodded slowly, recalling childhood days of innocence. Of course. But, Wells, those days are long gone. Exactly, he continued, stepping towards them. But what I need you to understand is that this situation, everything happening right now, it's deeply entwined with our past. You, me, and that neighborhood, it's all connected. Connected how? Alex asked, crossing his arms. You're not making any sense. Wells ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. Because it's not just about stolen cars or running from the law. There's a human element here. A child's life is on the line. I thought you should know. Before he could finish, the sound of footsteps echoing in the hallway outside sent cold shivers down Maria's spine. They exchanged glances, fear pooling in their eyes. Someone was getting closer. Get down. Wells hissed, looking for a place to hide. They scrambled behind an old crate, Maria's heart pounding loudly in her ears. The world outside faded away as they pressed against each other, the weight of the air thick with anticipation. Wells's expression shifted, and she saw a flicker of worry dance in his eyes, revealing just how serious the stakes truly were. What were they about to walk into? Was there any hope of saving that child? Then the footsteps stopped, and a raspy voice called out, "Officer Wells. We know you're in there. Come out with your hands up." Maria's pulse raced. She felt trapped in a cage of uncertainties and escalating danger. But why was Wells being hunted? If this was only the beginning, what else lay in store for them? The heavy silence settled around them, smothering Maria with a paralyzing dread. She could barely breathe as she pressed deeper into the shadows. The raspy voice outside spurred a whirlwind of anxiety, and she gripped Alex's hand tighter. "Wells, what do we do?" Jake whispered, panic edging into his tone. "We wait," Wells replied quietly, his face set in determination. Just for a moment Maria's mind raced. How could they be in such dire straits? Suddenly, the weight of the night pressed down harsher. Wells wasn't just a friend anymore. He was an officer, tangled in a mess that might be deeper than any of them understood. Her heart ached for him and for whatever it was that made him run. Just then, the sharp sound of wood splintering made her jump. The door of the storage unit cracked open a bit, light spilling in like a spotlight on their hiding spot. A pair of shadows crossed the threshold, one large and commanding, the other slighter, almost hunched. "Wells." The name came out in a growl. "You're going to face the consequences for your actions. We know you're in there." An instinctual surge of protectiveness rose inside Maria. She couldn't let them take him. The memories of their neighborhood, a place once full of laughter and adventure, brought a bittersweet comfort. But it also reminded her of the innocent lives at risk. "Don't move," Wells murmured, tension radiating between his shoulders. "Just stay quiet." The shadows shifted. Maria could see the outline of a badge glinting in the light. An officer. Her heart sank. They were there to chase him down, to hold him accountable. But they were also after something else, something more significant than a man or a child. Were they there to arrest him for what he did or for what he was trying to protect? Suddenly, the smaller figure stepped closer, pushing against the door. "Just let me see you, Wells. It's been a long night for everyone. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Wells's eyes flicked toward the others, his resolve mixed with desperation. Maria held her breath, the air thick with tension. "Why did you even come here?" Wells asked, his voice low and steady. "You know you won't take me in without proof." "Proof? We already have it. The stolen car, the child's name? That's all we need." The loud accusation reverberated off the walls, and Maria felt something crack inside her. "He's not just a name. He's real," Maria blurted out without thinking, surprising even herself. "You're not just after a criminal, you're after a hero here." The room stilled, silence stretching infinitely. Wells's surprise was palpable, and in that moment, the shadowy figures became still, confused by her outburst. "What are you talking about?" The taller officer challenged, skepticism dripping from every word. Maria pointed to Wells, "is trying to save a child's life. You think he's running from the law for fun? There's more at stake here." The heaviness of those words hung in the air. She didn't know if it would calm the storm or ignite it. "What do you mean?" The officer's tone softened slightly, curiosity creeping into his voice. He's connected to that kid. Alex cut in. Don't you see? We can't waste time. He needs your help, not your guns. Wells glanced sideways at Maria with disbelief and amazement. She could see him wrestling with the move she'd just made. She felt her heart pound with a mix of terror and hope. Would this be the moment they turned the tide, or would it push the agents further into their hunt? A moment stretched painfully as the officers processed what she said. Then the smaller officer spoke. Let us hear what he has to say, but I'm not making any promises. Before Maria could exhale, she felt the shift in the air around them. The course of their night had changed. Now it was all or nothing. Wells, please tell them. But just then, another sound shattered their fragile truce, a distant horn, slicing through the night like a knife. The sirens in the distance grew louder, an ominous reminder that time was running out. They were running out of time to save that child. Let us move. Wells commanded. Urgency flooding back into his voice. We need to get to him before it's too late. Could they escape the shadows closing in around them in time to save a life? The sirens wailed, echoing through the cramped storage unit, drowning out the whispers of uncertainty that lingered. Wells shot Maria a sharp look, the weight of what she had said hanging between them. He made a quick decision, pushing past the moment and focusing on the task ahead. Let us go. He urged, adrenaline sharpening his voice. The group shuffled through the dim unit toward the cracked door, the flickering police lights throwing eerie shadows along the walls. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, rapid and relentless. Maria feared they wouldn't make it. The thought knotted in her stomach, but she couldn't let that fear pull her down now. Jake led the way, slipping around Wells to shove the door open wide. We can't just stay here, he hissed, darting outside. Get down. Wells barked, thrusting Maria and Alex behind him. He shielded them as they stepped into the chaos of the parking lot. The night air was thick with tension, punctuated by the shrill calls of officers rushing toward what they perceived as a threat. Maria's pulse quickened. She grabbed Alex's hand, pulling him close. We have to trust him. Wells guided them towards the darkness cast by an abandoned vehicle, its rusting frame a potential cover. They squeezed into the shadows, hearts racing as they tried to blend in. They're looking for me, Wells murmured, scanning the lot. If they find us, we need to act fast. Where's the child? Alex whispered, anxiety lacing his voice. Not far. We'll use the back exit of the building. Wells' gaze darted around, eyes sharp and alert. I need you both to stay quiet and follow my lead. The distant sounds of shouting grew closer. With each passing second, the threat of confrontation loomed heavier. Wells took a breath, steeling himself before he turned to them, determination in his eyes. Go straight to the car. I'll create a diversion. Are you crazy? Maria blurted out. You can't. Don't argue. You have to get that child out. Everything is in place, Wells insisted, urgency radiating from him. I'll be right behind you. His intensity struck a chord within her. The thought of that child needing help pushed aside her fear. She felt her heart swell with resolve. They couldn't give up now. Okay, she finally agreed, taking a deep breath. We do this together. But make sure I will, he promised, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. Go. With a swift nod to Alex, they moved. The two slipped into the night, keeping low and darting towards the corner of the unit. Wells stayed behind, an anchored force, ready to act while entrusting the plan to them. Thudding footsteps echoed in the air. The officers were searching relentlessly, narrowing down on their position. Wells clenched his fists, frustration boiling in a steady stream of fear. He needed to buy them time. That he turned to face the confusion outside, his heart pounding against his ribs. Hey! Over here! His voice rang out, bold and clear. Chaos erupted. Wells started sprinting in the opposite direction, drawing attention away from Maria and Alex. He realized that each step was a risk, a gamble for his freedom, for the child's life. "Simon, we need to hurry," Maria urged, pulling Alex along as they made their way around the building toward the unmistakable sound of a sobbing child. She could only hope they reached him in time, hope that Wells's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain, but just as they rounded the corner, Maria froze, her heart dropping to her stomach. There, a familiar figure stood, one she had hoped to never see again. "Maria," the figure called, a slow, menacing smile crossing their face. Her breath hitched, panic rising like water in her throat. It couldn't be. She thought they were safe. "Get away from him," Alex shouted, his voice choking as he stepped forward protectively. A single glance at the child behind the figure sent a chill through her. Something flickered in her chest, a blend of dread and fury. "We have to run," Alex urged again, pulling her away instinctively. But how could they leave? With her heart pounding, Maria stood her ground. Her voice trembled, but she couldn't back away now. "Who do you think you are?" In that perilous moment, everything had shifted. They were no longer just hiding from the law. They were about to face something, the truth of their pasts, and the consequences they would have to confront. The night was closing in, and one way or another, the answers were about to unravel. Would they stand strong in the face of their fears, or would history dictate their future? Maria felt the familiar figure's presence suffocating, wrapping around her like a cold shroud. The person stepping forward was Sloane, the very embodiment of her forgotten fears. Memories flooded back, each one sharper than the last, a face lost in darkness, trust shattered, and promises broken. "What do you want?" she managed to choke out, her voice steadier than she felt. Sloane's smile deepened, a deceptive mask of calm. "I didn't expect to find you here, Maria. But how fortunate for us both." His gaze flicked toward the trembling child behind him, the sobs echoing in the thick air. "It's been a while since I had a chance to reclaim what's mine." "No," Alex snarled, stepping in front of Maria instinctively, shoulders squared. "You don't have any claim over him." Maria's heart raced, her instinct screaming at her to retreat, but something deeper held her in place. The child behind Sloane, with tear-streaked cheeks and wide, frightened eyes, looked at her pleadingly. It was a reflection of her own fear, a stark reminder of helplessness she couldn't ignore. Sloane laughed softly, almost mockingly. "Brave, aren't you? But bravery has its consequences." The threat lingered in the air, thick like smoke, swirling around Maria and Alex. She glanced at Alex, who looked ready to spring and fight, but there was no guarantee that aggression would end well. "Let him go, Sloane. This isn't about you anymore." His gaze hardened, the glimmer of intimidation flickering at the edges. "Oh, but it is. It's always been about me. You don't just walk away from what you owe." The sobs grew louder from the child, suffocated beneath the weight of the tension. Maria felt her own emotions surge, fear morphing into fierce protection. "You think you can use him as leverage? This ends now." Time slowed as the stakes crystallized in her mind. Wells was counting on them. If they were to escape with the child, they needed to blindside Sloane. "Alex, I need you to stay behind me. When I say run, we don't stop." Maria held her breath, preparing herself for a moment that could change everything. "Run?" Alex echoed, disbelief crossing his features. "Against him? Are you sure?" "Just trust me," she urged, the words spilling out with resolve. "We can't let him win. It ends tonight, and I won't let him take another piece of my life." Sloane stepped closer, the robbing smile turning sinister. "You think you can just walk away? I have eyes everywhere." She tightened her grip on Alex's arm, heart thumping. "Not if we're fast enough." In one swift motion, Maria turned. "Now!" Together, they bolted toward the child, shouting in unison. The world seemed to explode around them. Sloane lunged forward, but Maria's resolve pushed her ahead. The child looked up, shock mingled with hope. "Come with us." As they dashed past Sloane, panic skated through her veins, but she felt alive. With every step, every heartbeat, she felt anchored by purpose. They'd come this far, they could do this. But just as they reached the child, a hand grabbed her arm, the grip cold and unyielding. "You think you can escape that easily?" Sloane's voice dripped with malice. The air crackled as Maria's heart plummeted. She was caught. But in that fleeting moment of fear, a flicker of defiance ignited within her. "Let him go!" She screamed, a surge of adrenaline allowing her to slip from his grasp. As she rounded the corner with the child, she realized this was only the beginning. "To the car!" she yelled, hope intertwining with desperation. Every second stretched as she glanced back, expecting Sloane to follow. But would they make it? Would Wells even be able to help them? The outside world loomed before them, but in that moment of rushing chaos, Maria realized they weren't just running from Sloane, they were pushing toward a truth that had long been buried. And as they stumbled into the hidden alley, adrenaline still coursing through them, the weight of history began to lift, the horizon filled with possible futures, and the threads of their lives intertwined in ways unknown. But as the night darkened around them, the question lingered, was freedom worth the price they were about to pay? As Maria dashed into the alley, heart pounding, she clutched the child's hand tightly. Trust surged between them, a lifeline in the chaos. The walls shadowed them, but the light of hope sparkled brighter than ever. They were free now, if only for a moment, but the darkness behind them was relentless. "Keep running. Stay just ahead of me," Maria shouted, urging Alex and the child forward. The raw determination surged in her heart. She had come too far to let Sloane or anyone else drag them back. With each step, her muscles burned, but the thought of the child in danger fueled her every ounce of strength. Memories of the veteran's fierce protection flooded her heart, igniting a deeper fight within her. She couldn't abandon them now. Fleeing into obscurity wasn't an option. They needed to find Wells, and with him, a way out. "Where's the car?" she asked Alex, trying to keep her voice steady against the backdrop of distant sirens. "Just a bit further. We can reach the other side of the block," he replied, face tight with determination. They bolted for what felt like an eternity until they spotted the glimmer of headlights reflecting off cracked pavement. Jake was waiting near the back of the car, eyes wide with fear and urgency. His familiar figure anchored Maria's resolve. "Get in. Quick." Jake motioned, glancing nervously towards the street. They scrambled into the car, Maria and Alex in the back with the child nestled between them. "We can't leave without Wells," Maria panted, desperation bubbling in her chest. The child looked at them with wide, trusting eyes. "I'll get him," Jake yelled, clearly prepared to run back into the fray. "No," Maria interjected fiercely, seizing Jacob's arm. "We don't have time. If we leave now, I promise we'll come back for him. But we can't lose you, too." The thought of Wells facing Sloane alone twisted her stomach. Jake hesitated, regret mixing with determination, and then he nodded, understanding the truth they were all facing. They couldn't let fear choke their fight. "Okay. Let us go. Now," he urged, tearing out of the alley and onto the street. As the car sped through the neon glow of Chicago's streets, Maria felt a weight lift. They were alive. But the question of what lay ahead loomed heavy. Would they find Wells? Before she could even catch her breath, her phone buzzed incessantly in her pocket. Glancing down, she saw a message from a number she didn't recognize. "He's more than a man of the law. He's a protector." The words hung in the air, echoing the uncertainty of the moment. "Who was it?" Alex asked. "Not sure," Maria muttered, the thrill of danger still lacing her veins. "But we need to figure it out later." Suddenly, the car screeched to a halt, and lights flashed. They had been cornered. "Get down!" Jake shouted, throwing them into the back seat. Wells's face morphed into her mind, courage carved into every line of the resolute soldier who had sacrificed himself for their freedom. "We can't let this be for nothing," Maria thought, leaning toward Alex and the child. "You need to trust me, all of you," she said firmly, then, without a second thought, she reached for the door handle, flipping it open. "We're getting out." Before anyone could protest, she stepped into the light. "We're not the bad guys," she cried out, arms raised, standing tall against the fear creeping in from all sides. Both officers froze, disbelief painting their faces. "Stand down. It's okay," one yelled hesitantly. "Wells, he's trying to protect a child," Maria shouted, her voice gaining urgency. "You have to help him. We need to get back. He's in danger." She felt fierce emotion surge through her, a mix of desperation and resolve. A tense silence stretched for what seemed like an eternity. Slowly, she saw the men exchanging glances, uncertainty hanging between them. "We can't risk making this worse," one said, stepping closer. "We could protect you," the other added as doubt flickered in his eyes. "Help us," Maria begged. "Help him." She could see the hearts of the officers wavering, and it was the moment she'd been waiting for, with a nod exchanged between them. They moved closer, understanding the stakes. "All right. We'll help you find him. Just follow our lead," one said, voice steady but calm, pulling back the stifling tension a bit. Maria grasped Alex's hand, and they exchanged relieved smiles. Together, they would reclaim the night, fight for the futures they yearned for. They had a mission, and they wouldn't stop until they found Wells. As they moved with ferocity towards the blockades where the uncertainty lay, Maria felt the world spinning into focus. She wasn't just a maid, nor was she just a scared sister. She was a fighter, a protector, and against all odds she would save them all. The streets opened ahead, and their hearts raced. Life was waiting just a heartbeat away. "Let us bring him home," she declared, as voices intensified around them yet harmony reigned in her heart. This was their final chance to break the cycle, to transform the night, to make it a dawn filled with hope, courage, and a fierce determination to rise together, and with that, they charged toward the unknown, ready to stand strong for everything they had fought for, diving headfirst into the storm, ready to turn the tide. Now it was time for action, and together, they would bring this story to a close, far greater than they had ever imagined. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you won't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep us going. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this explosive ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.